On the afternoon of July 19th, 2018, 5-year-old Khloe Chandler was put down for a nap and never woke up. First responders found themselves standing in a room with a lifeless little girl in a scene that made no sense. A mother who was hysterical, sobbing, insisting that this was all a terrible accident. She found poor Khloe dead in her room when she was just supposed to be napping. But the story didn't add up. Before investigators even finished processing the scene, the cracks were already forming. Finally, after countless hours of relentless investigation and questioning, the truth began to unravel piece by piece. What happened to Khloe Chandler was no accident, but something much darker, much more sinister. Today we are diving into a case that will leave you feeling frustrated, heartbroken, and angry. But Khloe's story deserves to be told. Khloe Marie Chandler was born on November 11, 2012 in Marshalltown, Iowa to Kelsie Aaron and Stephen Chandler. However, according to Kelsie, the relationship between herself and Stephen was a toxic one from the very start, so shortly after Khloe was born, the pair split up. From there, Kelsie met and married Aaron Thomas. As far as I can tell, it seems like Aaron was the main father figure in Khloe's life, while Stephen didn't seem to have much involvement. 3 years later, Kelsie and Aaron went on to have a child of their own, a son named Phoenix. According to those who knew and loved then 5-year-old little Khloe, she was an intelligent, energetic, outgoing little girl with a wide array of interests. She loved sunflowers, sticker books, riding her bike, and her absolute favorite color was purple. By all accounts, it seems like the family were living a normal, happy life in their home in Ottumwa, Iowa. Of course, having 2 young children isn't easy, but it seems like Kelsie and Aaron had a good partnership and managed their household well. By the morning of July 19th, 2018, Kelsie had to run some errands with her father, taking her then 3-year-old son Phoenix with her while Khloe was left at home with Aaron. Kelsie and Phoenix returned home a few hours later around 11 or noon, at which point Aaron then left to go detail a friend's car. By that point, Kelsie made the kids their lunch, gave Phoenix a bath, and planned to put the kids down for a nap. She herself desperately needed a nap. She was exhausted that day and just needed some sleep before her work shift at Casey's General Store, which was scheduled for 4 p.m. that evening. By 3:17 p.m., Kelsie gave Aaron a call, reminding him that he needed to get home right away to take care of the kids so that she could get to work on time. According to Aaron, Kelsie sounded very annoyed on this call. Of course, he left his friend's house and started heading home, but when he was about halfway there, by 3:22 p.m., Aaron received another call from Kelsie. This time, she was crying, sounded hysterical and frantic. Through tears, she told Aaron that Khloe was not breathing. Of course, Aaron rushed home as fast as he could. Right before calling Aaron to let him know what happened, Kelsie had called 911 to report that she found her 5-year-old unresponsive in her room. When officers arrived to the scene, they quickly located Khloe, who was lying sideways on her bed with vomit on her face and hair. She was unresponsive, completely unmoving, and had no pulse. First responders immediately began CPR and other life-saving measures, but tragically, it was too late. 5-year-old little Khloe Marie Chandler was pronounced dead. And pretty much right away, first responders had a pretty good idea of what may have happened to her. When they were performing CPR, they noticed ligature marks all over her neck, so it appeared right away that she had been strangled. Immediately, when Aaron had walked through the door of that home and when officers first questioned her at the scene, she gave the same story. She said that she put Khloe down for a nap hours earlier, and when she came back to check on her, she found her in the closet hanging from the clothing rod. She explained that after putting Khloe in her room for a nap, she believes that Khloe was playing in her closet when she tied a knot using the legs of her pajama pants over the dowel rod in the closet. She must have been trying to make a swing or something in there. She must have put her head through the hole in the knot, lost her footing, and somehow hung herself over the crotch of the pajamas. When she found Khloe, of course, she took her out of the closet and laid her down on the bed and tried to save her. But by the time Kelsie got Khloe out of that noose, the pajama pants had somehow untied themselves and came loose, falling off of the clothing rod. That is why police didn't see them hanging there when they got there. But of course, investigators found Kelsie's story a little or a lot hard to believe. A very convenient story for a little girl who appeared to have ligature marks around her neck, which were clearly visible by everyone at the scene, including Kelsie. So detectives started their investigation to find out what was really going on here. They started by examining the room and closet where Khloe was found, and right away they found massive logistical issues that made Kelsie's story seem almost impossible. First, it was noted that Khloe stood at 64 inches tall at the time of her death, while the dowel rod was placed about 62 inches from the floor, meaning it was about 16 inches above the top of her head. According to various growth charts I was able to find online via the Center for Disease Control and other university children's health organizations, the consensus seems to be that the average child can reach above their head at a height of about 1/4 to 1/3 of their total height. For Khloe, that means that at most she could have reached to about 15¼ inches above her head. Again, the rod was placed at about 16 inches above her head, so on her tippy toes, she would have been able to just about reach the bottom of that rod. Already, that seems pretty unlikely that she would have been able to reach up and past the rod enough to tie a knot up and around to create a loop. But you could argue that she could have thrown one leg above the rod and pulled it down to more of her height to create the loop. That is absolutely possible. But you do have to consider again that this is a 5-year-old little girl we're talking about. I just don't know that many 5-year-olds that are going to be that crafty, but I guess you could say that that is what she did. We can still consider that as an argument. The other argument is that she could have stood up on something to reach the rod. However, based on what investigators found in that closet, there was nothing for her to stand on. I mean, there were some items in the closet that she could have used if she moved them, put them under the rod, and stood up on them, but there was nothing under the rod to show that she had put them there to stand on. Again, if we are to believe that Kelsie found her daughter, grabbed her directly from the closet, and put her right on the bed and didn't move anything in the scene, then whatever Khloe would have put under the rod to stand up on it would have still been there by the time investigators arrived. But again, there was nothing there. And again, anything that was in the closet was not even close enough to the rod for her to stood up on it, for her to have reached the rod. To add to that, investigators said that even if Khloe did manage to tie the knot around this rod, first of all, it's not likely that she would have been able to tie it tight enough to hold her weight. She weighed 45 pounds at the time of her death. And again, she was 5 years old. Now, I will note that while her preschool teacher did tell police that Khloe knew how to tie her shoes, Khloe's grandmother said that she wasn't very good at it. I've personally seen plenty of 5-year-olds tie their shoes, and they're not tying slip knots here. They're just learning how to tie their shoes and tie knots at that age, and they're likely going to come undone after they run around for a little bit. That's just how it is. So I'm not saying that she wouldn't have been able to tie a knot. She probably would have been able to tie one, but it's just not going to be a very good one, and it's not going to be the most secure knot to hang yourself from. But again, if we ignore all that, let's just say that Khloe was just really good at tying knots. So even if she did manage to tie this knot, investigators argued that the pajama pants were very stretchy to the point that if she managed to get her head in that loop and suspend herself from that rod, her feet would have easily touched the ground. Again, The rod was about 16 inches above her head, and she stood at 46 inches tall. On average, according to online data that I found, a 5-year-old girl's inseam length for pants measures at 17 to 19 inches. Take away 4 or 5 inches for the knot, and that leaves us with about 12 to 13 inches of length that the pants are hanging down from at that rod. With the rod about 16 inches above her head, that would leave 3 or 4 inches above her head, which she could easily reach. Let's say she managed to tie that up, tied it in to make it into a swing, and then only managed to get her head in and got stuck. Investigators believe that these pants were stretchy enough that her feet would have absolutely been able to touch the floor. Again, they realistically would have only had to stretch 5 or 6 inches for her at least to be able to get her toes on the floor and for her arms to reach around to remove the pants from her face. If you have any experience with children's pajamas, you know that they are at least a little bit stretchy unless it's like a nightgown. But especially with 45 pounds pulling down on them, I absolutely believe that they would have stretched out enough for Khloe to touch the ground. Just imagine her head being in them stretching down, her toes on the ground, and her hands being able to pull herself out. It just doesn't seem realistic that she wouldn't have been able to do that. But okay, let's say somehow she still managed to get her head and neck stuck in this noose and it wasn't stretchy enough for her feet to touch the ground and she accidentally hung herself. Even if that all were the case, you would still expect there to be some sort of struggle in that closet. Even with people who choose to take their own lives, when they're actually starting to die, they'll start kicking around and trying to free themselves. It's a natural human response. If Khloe realized that she had gotten stuck and was trying to get out, her human instincts would have kicked in and she would have started fighting. She would have kicked around, making dents in the plaster or scuff marks on the wall, causing objects to get knocked down and fall off the shelves. There was absolutely no sign of that in the closet whatsoever. I know I've been talking for a long time, but that just goes to show how many things just do not line up for this to have worked. And so you just consider all of those things that are unlikely to have lined up. All those things would have had to have worked all together for this to have been what caused Khloe's death. All of that put together made investigators believe that there was really no way Khloe somehow tied her own pajama bottoms to that clothing rod and accidentally hung herself. And then all of that put together, you then have to believe that somehow she hung herself 45 pounds stretching on those pajama pants, and she just hung there, and then her mom grabbed her after finding her. Again, this was 2 or 3 hours that she would have been hanging there after she was put down for a nap that her mom finally found her, took her out of there, and then somehow the pants untied themselves and fell down. And then after Khloe was dead, after she was put on the bed, that's when she threw up on herself. She didn't throw up on the pajama pants or in the closet because the closet was clean. She threw up after she died on the bed. None of it makes absolutely any sense. It just does not seem logistically possible, and there is not a bit of evidence to back it up, not a single bit. Then, as detectives were examining the room where Khloe died, her body was sent to the medical examiner's office for an autopsy. There, it was found that Khloe had suffered from multiple hemorrhages within multiple layers of her neck tissue. There were hemorrhages throughout multiple layers of her musculature, within her vocal cords, on the sides and backs of her neck, along her carotid arteries, and her thyroid cartilage. According to the medical examiner, this is not consistent with a hanging death in a child. These types of hemorrhages are consistent with movement and pressure, friction caused by a struggle. Now, someone would struggle in a hanging death, but the pressure is relatively consistent because where the noose is placed and the way is distributed, it remains relatively consistent. Whereas if this were a case of manual strangulation, she would be fighting, changing positions, thrashing around, causing the person strangling her to apply pressure in, slightly different areas, even if the person was much bigger than her and overpowering her to a pretty big extent. They still would have had at least a little bit of struggle putting the pressure on different areas of her neck. So based on what the medical examiner found in her autopsy, she concluded that Khloe's cause of death was strangulation, not hanging. Her manner of death was determined to be homicide. After finding out all of this information that completely contradicted what Kelsie initially told investigators, she came to the station for a second interview. While there, Kelsie went back and forth between talking about how Khloe was just this angel of a child to her being a bit of a troubled child with some difficult behaviors. Then, police started telling her that some of the people they spoke to throughout their investigation said that Kelsie spoke about hating Khloe, how she was out of control and that she didn't even want her anymore. How after Khloe's death, Kelsie wouldn't even tell her own family members what happened. People had to find out about it through the grapevine. They then started telling her that they did not believe the story she told. It physically was not possible. She could not have tied that noose and hung herself. Throughout this time, she absolutely maintained that she had nothing to do with her daughter's death. As time went on, she grew more and more irate. She became defensive and hostile, started yelling at the interviewers, saying that she was tired of this. She said that she loved her daughter and never would have hurt her. She didn't lay a hand on her that entire day. She was yelling, huffing and puffing, throwing back her head, reiterating that she did not kill her daughter.
I found her in the closet. You did not find her hanging in the closet? Whatever. I found her in that closet. But she didn't find her hanging in the closet or hanging in the closet. She was in there, hanging. It looked like she was hanging. Okay, I removed her from the closet and put her on her bed. I think we're getting somewhere now. You're acknowledging that you're doubting the fact that she was... Because you guys are in my fucking head. As many times as you have told us and stuck to your story that you did not kill your daughter. I didn't kill my daughter. No, I didn't. You're not going to slip up on the fact of whether I believe she was hanging in there. So your daughter wasn't hanging in the closet. I found her hanging in the closet. Why are you guys trying to put words in my mouth? You're the one who just said it, not me. She was alive when I went to sleep. She was not when I woke up. The only reason why you guys are fucking blaming me or accusing me is because I was the only one there. That's not why. So what, if my husband was there, would he be in the same fucking case scenario? Absolutely. 100%.
But later in the interview, things started to take a turn. It seemed that investigators struck a nerve. They started to talk about how they can get frustrated with their own kids to the point that sometimes they want to lose their cool. It happens. She was the mother of 2 young children. They would understand if she was exhausted, overwhelmed, frustrated. And by that point, Kelsie started to talk. It had been several hours into the interrogation, and Kelsie was tired. She started to tell them that she was frustrated. She was exhausted for a plethora of reasons. She felt that she was taking on most of the responsibility of the kids. She felt that she was taking care of them mostly on her own, while her husband, Aaron, got a lot more free time to himself. She was helping take care of a sick parent and was working full-time at Casey's. She was completely overwhelmed. She explained that on the morning of July 19th, she ran those errands with her father like I described before. She took her son Phoenix with her, leaving Khloe at home with Aaron because she was just too out of control that day to take with her. When she got back home, Aaron left, leaving her at home with the 2 kids. She made them lunch, got Phoenix bathed, and wanted to put her kids down for a nap. But Khloe would not take a nap. She was running around the house, refusing to lay down. Kelsie told her that she needed to lay down and stay in bed or she was going to spank her butt, but Khloe ignored her. She got back up and started running around the house again. At one point, she even filled up the bathroom sink full of water and left a big mess for Kelsie to clean up. After a while, Kelsie finally got Khloe to lay down, but it didn't last long. Khloe immediately tried getting back up and was about to start running around again, so Kelsie grabbed her by the arm to try to stop her, but Khloe wrangled free from her. So Kelsie grabbed a pair of Khloe's pajama pants, put them around Khloe's neck, and started pulling her back. She then lifted her off the ground, twisting the pajama pants tighter around her neck as she carried her daughter to the bed. She said by that point, Khloe was shaking and kicking, gasping for air as she tried to escape. Once in the room, Kelsie dropped Khloe on the bed and pushed her down on the chest, saying, "You need to stay here. It's nap time." At that time, Kelsie said that she saw Khloe's eyes get big and she could tell she was scared. So she pushed herself off of Khloe and stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her. After that, she went to lay down in her room to finally take her nap. By that point, it was about 1 p.m. Kelsie said that she went to sleep thinking that Khloe was fine. She thought she just scared her. When she woke up 2 hours later, around 3 p.m., as we know, she called Aaron to tell him to come home and take care of the kids. She told investigators that when she woke up from her nap, she did feel bad. She wanted to go in there, apologize to Khloe, tell her that she felt bad. She didn't mean it. She was just angry. But when she got in there, she realized her lips were blue, her eyes were closed, and her skin was pale. She grabbed her, tried to wake her up, but realized she was gone.
I came into the room, and she had jumped out of her bed. And I tried to grab her arm, she slipped out of my arm, and she ran out of her bedroom. I grabbed the pants, and I just went like this, and I pulled. Where was she at? She was in the room. She was, like I said, I tried to grab her arm, which stopped her, and she turned, and got my arm out, I got her arm out of my hand. So I grabbed the pants, and I threw them over her, and then when I pulled, I don't know, honestly, if I twisted or, I know she had turned around. Because when I grabbed her, take her backwards, she turned. So I picked her up, and I laid her on her bed, and when I held her down, I told her, I was like, you need to go to sleep. I told her, you need to go to sleep. I just want some time to sleep. I told you numerous times that you need to go to bed.
After making this confession, Kelsie started apologizing and saying she didn't mean to kill her daughter. She loved her and never wanted to hurt her. But honestly, that apology meant nothing. She did hurt Khloe. Khloe didn't deserve to be treated like that. She was just a 5-year-old little girl full of energy, playing in the house just like any other 5-year-old child does. But instead of being treated with patience and kindness, or even being disciplined in a way that teaches her something about listening to what she is told, her mom strangles her to death with her own pajamas. I don't care what Kelsie said. She wanted to scare the daylight out of her daughter. The last thing Khloe ever saw was her mom taking her by the neck and squeezing the life out of her. No child deserves that. So Kelsie was charged with first-degree murder, and at her preliminary hearing, she was given a bail of $500,000, which she could not post, so she awaited her trial in jail. Less than a year later, in March of 2020, Kelsie stood trial for charges of first-degree murder and child endangerment resulting in death. With the first-degree murder charge, they had to prove planning and forethought. But if they couldn't, the jury could still decide on lesser charges if they saw fit. So let's say if they thought it was murder without forethought, they could still convict her of second degree. So it's not like some other states where the exact charge has to be the one she is convicted of. The prosecution argued that Kelsie strangled Khloe to death. They explained that Khloe is a child from her previous relationship with Chandler. Kelsie said that Steven had cheated on her and was abusive and had no involvement in Khloe's life. She went on to marry a new man who she had her second child with. But as Khloe got older, she started to act up, and those behaviors started to remind her of the ex she hated so much. This, coupled with her exhaustion, feeling overwhelmed by life in general, led to her resenting and hating Khloe. All of this built up until that fateful day when Khloe just wouldn't take a damn nap. She was running around the house and wouldn't listen. So Kelsie decided that enough was enough. She took those pajama bottoms, wrapped them tightly around her daughter's neck, and strangled her until she breathed her last breath. The prosecution showed the jury the confession where Kelsie literally confessed to killing Khloe. She said herself that she got tired of Khloe running around when all she wanted to do was take a nap. So she grabbed those pajama bottoms and strangled her to death. She admitted it herself. The medical examiner, Dr. Chandler, testified that the injuries Khloe sustained indicate a manual strangulation. Again, the fact that she had hemorrhages to different areas of her neck that went deep into multiple layers of tissue, that indicates a violent struggle, an intense amount of pressure, and someone overpowering her. They also brought forward multiple witnesses who testified that Kelsie was having a lot of trouble dealing with Khloe. In fact, witnesses heard her say that she hated her own daughter. First, Kelsie's mother, Khloe's grandmother, testified at trial. Now, Kelsie's mother, Calandra, had pretty sporadic contact with Kelsie throughout most of her life. From the age of 14, Kelsie lived with her dad and had little contact with her mom after she moved away from the area. But after Kelsie had Khloe in Phoenix, it seems like Calandra became more involved in their lives. She visited them for family events and often saw Khloe on the weekends. According to Calandra, Kelsie said that Khloe's behaviors were getting out of control. At one point, Kelsie even asked Calandra if she could take Khloe because she was tired of dealing with her. Any time she spent with the family, she noticed that Kelsie paid much more attention to her son, Phoenix, and mostly just ignored Khloe. Calandra even said that after Khloe's death, Kelsie didn't tell anyone what happened. Calandra found out from an ex of Kelsie's about Khloe, and when she called Kelsie and asked about Khloe, Kelsie responded, "How did you find out?" Calandra said that she was stunned at how Kelsie spoke about the situation. She didn't seem upset at all. She didn't seem at all emotional. Kelsie's cousin, Brittany, also testified. She said that she often spent time with the family during family outings and get-togethers. She said that Kelsie once told her that she didn't like Khloe because she reminded her too much of her ex, Steven. She was acting out like he did, and she was out of control. To Brittany, Khloe acted like a normal, energetic 5-year-old, but to Kelsie, she was just a horrible little brat. She said that she noticed Kelsie often ignoring Khloe and obviously seemed to prefer the younger brother Phoenix. She said that she showered Phoenix in attention, while Khloe was just completely left out. She too said that after Khloe's death, Kelsie refused to tell her what happened, and when she eventually brought it out of her, Kelsie was unemotional and cold. The prosecution said that everything pointed to Kelsie murdering her own daughter by strangling her to death, with Kelsie herself even admitting to it. Therefore, the jury needed to convict her on both charges. On the other hand, the defense actually stuck with the argument that Khloe accidentally hung herself in that closet. They started by saying that Khloe's confession was coerced. She didn't mean any of it. She only confessed after hours and hours of intense interrogation, after she clearly became agitated and just wanted to get out of there. We see it all the time. Police using interrogation techniques that simply make people want to say whatever they think police want to hear because they just want it to be over with. The defense then brought forward their own forensic examiner, Dr. Young, who disagreed with the state medical examiner. He testified that Khloe's autopsy results actually can indicate a hanging. There typically will be a bit of a struggle even when you are hanging yourself, so you can expect to see some of those hemorrhages we saw with Khloe. He said that if there was a violent struggle, like Dr. Chandler argued, that Khloe would have had more scratches and cuts on her face and neck, more superficial injuries to indicate that she was trying to save herself. Though I'm not sure why the same wouldn't be argued if she was trying to remove the noose from her neck if she accidentally hung herself. But okay. But the prosecution came back and said that Dr. Young is actually much more experienced with performing autopsies on adults, whereas Dr. Chandler is on the Child Review Child Death Board. There are huge differences to account for when you're examining the body of a 45-pound child versus an adult, and Dr. Young just doesn't have the experience to know when to account for those variations. They said that when making his determination, Dr. Young ignored the fact that Khloe is a 45-pound child, and he pretty much just went on with his examination as if she were an adult. So if she had a lack of defensive wounds, it doesn't mean that she didn't fight back or that she wasn't strangled. It could mean that whoever was strangling her was a grown adult, more than double her weight, who easily overpowered her. Then the defense brought forward their own character witnesses who only had good things to say about how Kelsie treated her daughter. Kelsie's husband and Khloe's stepfather, Aaron, testified that Kelsie and Khloe had a very good mother-daughter relationship. He felt that Kelsie loved both of her children equally, and she did her best to raise them in a safe, loving home. The morning of Khloe's death was no different. Yes, she was probably tired and overwhelmed, but that wasn't anything abnormal. He never saw Kelsie abuse either of the children in any way, and he absolutely believed Kelsie's story of Khloe's death being an accidental hanging. He said that Khloe had some behavioral problems that could be difficult to handle, but it wasn't anything Kelsie wasn't used to. Khloe's preschool teacher, who saw her almost every day, said much of the same. She only had positive things to say about Kelsie. She said that Khloe seemed like an energetic, happy, healthy little girl. She skipped down the hallway, was excited about school, loved learning new things, and was willing to try anything new. She was well cared for, dressed well, and ready for the day every day. Kelsie was supportive and concerned, often speaking with the teacher about Khloe's progress in school. When she watched Khloe and Kelsie interact, she never saw anything but a mother who loved her daughter and a daughter who trusted her mother. Then, when it came to the statements about Kelsie showing a lack of emotion in relation to Khloe's death, it can be argued that everyone reacts differently. Some people simply don't like to express their emotions to others. Some are avoidant and don't want to talk about traumatic things that happen. If you don't tell anyone, it didn't happen. I also want to note that police reported that when Kelsie called 911, she was hysterical and despondent upon reporting her daughter's death. First responders on scene said much of the same. She was crying hysterically and seemed genuinely concerned and panicked about her daughter's death. Though, again, that doesn't mean that she didn't kill her. It probably just means that she regretted it shortly after. This trial lasted for about 2 weeks as both sides presented their evidence. But finally, the jury was sent for deliberations after closing arguments. And they deliberated for 3 days before coming back with their decision. They actually acquitted Kelsie of the charge of child endangerment, but they were hung on the charge of first-degree murder. They said that no further deliberation would bring them to a decision, so the judge declared a mistrial.
Mr. Presiding Juror, we're going to go count by count. As to count 1, is the jury able to reach a unanimous verdict?
No, we're not.
Would further deliberation be fruitless?
Yes, it would be.
The court has heard the statements of the jury and the individual jurors. The court has heard the positions of counsel. The court finds that the jury now has been deliberating for in excess of 14 hours. Their deliberations have occurred over parts of 4 days and have included 2 full days. The court finds, with respect to count 1, which is murder in the first degree, that the jury has deliberated until it satisfactorily appears they cannot agree. I am discharging the jury with respect to count 1, and a mistrial is declared with respect to count 1. The jury is hung. Now, we will move to count 2, which is child endangerment causing death. Would the presiding juror please stand up? Mr. Presiding Juror, has the jury reached a verdict on count 2?
We have.
Is that verdict unanimous?
It is.
In the Iowa District Court for Wapello County, State of Iowa, plaintiff versus Kelsie Ray Thomas, defendant, we, the jury, find the defendant, Kelsie Ray Thomas, not guilty under count 2. Signed by the presiding juror.
Which makes absolute no sense to me. Whoever was holding out on a guilty verdict for murder somehow conceded that she didn't endanger her child, but couldn't concede that she killed her. Make it make sense. Either way, after declaring a mistrial, a retrial was ordered. Only this time, the defense opted for a bench trial. And let me just say, this was a good move by the defense. Because when you go for a bench trial, there is no jury. You basically will present your evidence to the judge, who will then decide on the verdict and sentence. Sometimes defendants will do this when they think the judge simply has a better grasp on the law. Sometimes it makes sense if they feel like the jury will be too emotional to make a logical decision in their favor. The bench trial began in November of 2020, and basically the same arguments were brought forward with the same charge of first-degree murder. And in the end, the judge did feel that the prosecution's argument made more sense. Now, I didn't spend much time on it during the arguments of the first trial, but the judge agreed that the logistics of Khloe hanging herself in the closet simply didn't make any sense. Everything I explained earlier. Her having to reach up that high, tie a knot at just 5 years old, the pants stretching out, etc. The judge did also agree that Kelsie made her confession because she was exhausted, but that didn't mean it was a false confession. She believed that the story Kelsie told was the closest to the truth she had been this entire time. She believed that Kelsie took those pajama pants and strangled her daughter to death. However, she agreed that before this, she was a good mother who was exhausted and overwhelmed. She didn't hate her daughter. She did not believe that there was any forethought or planning, so this could not have been a first-degree murder. She also did not believe that Kelsie killed her daughter intentionally, so this was not a second-degree murder either. Instead, after hearing both sides, she concluded that the appropriate charge was involuntary manslaughter. This means that Kelsie's actions were reckless, and in doing them, she knew she could cause harm, but didn't intend to cause her daughter's death. This was done in a heat of passion, not in a murderous rage, I guess. For this, Kelsie was sentenced to just 5 years in prison, which is already atrociously short, but she only had to serve a small portion of her actual sentence, so she was released with time served. That's right. After about 1.5 years behind bars, Kelsie was immediately free to go after being found guilty of taking a pair of her daughter's pajama pants and violently strangling her to death with them. And that's it. That's where the case sits. All of this back and forth, and this is where we are left. A woman kills her daughter, and because it's in a heat of passion, she just gets to go free. Her 5-year-old daughter was murdered for running around, being a happy little girl, and her mother just gets to walk. I don't understand how a judge, a female judge, can sit there and look at this woman and acknowledge that she killed her daughter by strangling her and watch her walk out those doors. It's infuriating and gut-wrenching, and it doesn't make any sense. This is setting a disgusting precedent that you can kill your child whenever you want as long as you don't plan it. So if you lose your cool and decide you just don't want your kid anymore and kill them, it's all good. You do you. You'll spend a year behind bars and you'll be free to go. Live the rest of your life. Be cool. It's all good. We didn't want them anyways. I hate cases like this, and I can't stand when things like this happen. But there's nothing we can do about it now. All we can do is share Khloe's story, look at her picture, and remember her for the bright, adorable, loving little girl she was, and hope that her mother is tortured every single day, every single waking moment by what she did to her. But that is all I have for today's case, and now I want to hear from you all. What do you think really happened? Do you believe this was intentional, or do you believe Kelsie that she truly didn't mean to kill Khloe? What do you think of her mistrial and subsequent bench trial? Do you agree with the verdict and the charge she was ultimately convicted of? Do you agree with her sentence and the fact that she only served, it seems like, a fifth of it? Let's discuss this and any other thoughts you have in the comments below. If you like this video, please make sure to go ahead and leave this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I put out new true crime and mystery videos every single week. Don't forget to turn the notification bell on so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Make sure to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Spotify. All will be linked down below. And if you have any case suggestions, please make sure to fill out the Google form, which is also listed down below. With that, I hope you guys have an amazing week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.